All right, guys. Hey, good morning. Thanks for joining me today. One little special tool that I just absolutely love around the shop. It's like four-wheel drive on your pickup. You hardly ever use it, but when you do use it and need it, you are so glad you have it. And so it's just a handy little tool. And then we'll get into the in defense of technicians everywhere. So it is my little slide hammer. I absolutely enjoy this thing. So we got this attachment that goes inside bearings, cups, bushings, whatever. It goes inside places. As you tighten this into this body, this pin expands it out taper-wise and tightens these arms up so I can't squeeze them together. We got a single paw for hooking in places. And then the screw in, so you just drill a little tiny hole in that seal, and you screw this in, and you're just giving light taps, a little more tap, a little more tap, and you're always tightening as you do it. A little more tap, a little more tap. About the time you give it more cowbell, then all of a sudden, boom, the seal comes out on you. And sometimes you have to go to several spots to get it to come out. Then you got a wear ring or just anything else. So we got vice grips welded up. And so you just bend the outer flange, you start walking that out till you can snag it with the vice grips, and then zoop, and it's out. It works really handy. This is just a common thread. It's the same thread as our T-bar pullers and stuff like that. And so you can have you can take a T-bar puller and make a large one of these if you got a big bearing cup like that. You can do the same thing as this with a big T-puller, put this in there and pop them right out. It also works nice as like a bushing or a bearing installer. You just unthread this, put on your whatever you're using to drive, whatever flat plate you're going to drive, let's say that bearing. And then with that long handle, you can line it up to make sure that you're square to the world or square to the object, and then drive it down. It works. It is a handy little tool to have. All right, so in defense of mechanics everywhere, I read a lot of times on social media about how the technician was out there to fix their tractor, or they sent their tractor into the shop, and it took way too long according to the customer. It should have been, they ended up with this many hours to fix the thing, and all it was one simple little thing. 5 hours to change a switch on my tractor. Like, what the heck? And or like hydraulics are really notorious, because electronics, the newer tractors can give you codes to help you know where to go, but hydraulics don't give you codes, and you can get short circuits and opens just like you can in electronics. And so, hydraulics, you can really chase your tail for a long time. But diagnostics is just a mental flow chart. You're just process of elimination, trying to find it out. And sometimes it's hard to even recreate or to get the symptom to act up. So if the symptom isn't there, how do you even know what to fix or where to fix? Unless the customer's willing to be like, yes, just do all the exploratory surgery you want. Which I've never heard that before. Most of them are like, well, I'll figure it out, And I think this little tractor is a great example, but Shane Holt's tractor, and then a guy just called from Florida, and he's got a 2640 that is a fantastic example. It had a symptom that the loader chatters. And so he's like, oh, well, I'll pull the sump screen and do some maintenance. And sure enough, the sump screen was just plugged. He's like, there you go. Just a good, simple maintenance. Put that together, fixed nothing. Went ahead and he had to, he ended up splitting the tractor, repairing a bunch of stuff, still had the main problem. Went through the front pump, still had the problem. Went through some other valves, still has the problem. And it's like, what on earth? And that's how hydraulics go. You just keep fixing stuff that you are finding bad until you find the bad one that fixed the problem. Shane Holt's tractor was another example. The 3-point would chatter, had no steering. When the 3-point got to the top, it wouldn't come down. So you kind of had a few symptoms. and there was no real hydraulic flow. There was hydraulic pressure out the back, but no real hydraulic flow. And so you fix the priority valve, and then you pull the 3-point valve and go through that once, put it back on, find out that, yep, some things passed the bench test, but they're not passing the on the tractor test. So you pull it back off, fix a few more issues, put it back on. Oh, things are getting better, but now we have this problem. Pull it back off, fix that problem. And so by fixing a problem, it might expose another problem you didn't even know you had. It's goofy. This tractor is a fantastic example of just how that diagnostic flow chart works. And so it came in with some transmission noise because the customer said that they went through the rear end of the PTO here. There's a 2-speed. Everything looks good, but that when the tractor's running, you'd hear this geek, and it would echo through the transmission case. And you're like, gosh, it really does sound like it's right here in the transmission. And so being that they had the PTO apart, well, you'd like to believe everything there would have been fixed. So there's no reason for us to go in there right now. So we're driving it around for a couple hours in every gear, every direction, trying to see if we could pinpoint the transmission noise. We're just driving back and forth in the shop here. And pretty soon you're like, wait a minute. And every time you get going forward or reverse, it never does it with the clutch pedal down for the traction clutch. But as soon as you let the traction clutch out and start driving, then it does it in every gear. And you're like, well, that's really odd. So we put the 1 gear shift in neutral. So now the tractor's just sitting here, and we're shifting from reverse, forward, 1, 2, 3, forward, and reverse, back and forth. And in every one of them gears, it still had the noise. And you're like, okay, well, it's clearly not in the other transmission shaft, so maybe it's in this transmission. So then you put that transmission shaft in neutral, and now the tractor's just sitting here running. And while it's sitting here running, you could, you'd still get the noise. You'd watch the PTO. So I started watching the PTO shaft, and there's a brake. So as it starts to slow down, the PTO shaft would start to slow down. Then it's like, then it would speed back up. And you're like, well, okay. So you reach in and you move the 2-speed for the PTO, and it does it in both speeds. Peculiar. So I hook it up to a load outside and engage the PTO, and boom, it pulls the engine down. The engine, the clutch and drive system hold the load fine, and while it's running, there's no noise. So I bring it back in and let it run with the PTO on here for 10, 15 minutes, no noise. Shut the PTO off, and as soon as that starts to slow down, it makes that noise. So you think I was starting to lean towards brake, but then you're like, wait a minute here. So I took the little monkey wrench, put on the stub shaft, and let it wedge against the frame and let it sit here. And with the PTO shaft not spinning, that takes the brake out of the situation. With the PTO shaft not spinning, you're still getting the noise. So we're like, it has to be clutch. Has to be clutch. So we come up here, and sure enough, the clutch is shot, and the throwout bearing is shot. So this is an exaggerated movement, but this shaft with no pilot bearing, excuse me, I meant pilot bearing. The pilot bearing is gone. So that's an exaggeration of movement, but could that shaft move up and down since that bearing's not there? And the pads missing on here allow that disc to almost kind of bounce between the flywheel and pressure plate and start to get drug around. Or was it once in a while even some of this dust, some of the material from these linings would get wedged in there for a millisecond and then start to chatter. So we found it. It's not, there. If it was a Farmall H, if you had your tractor at the dealership and you're like, yeah, my Farmall H was missing third gear, and they had 10 hours of diagnostics on it above and beyond the repair, you'd be like, yeah, that dealer's just clearly billing you time. Because, I don't know, a Farmall H, if third gear's missing, you pop the transmission cover, and anything associated with third gear, you should find damage somewhere there easy. These electronics and hydraulic issues aren't always that cut and dry, and sometimes you can spend a lot of hours And the other thing is when you're out on a service call, you know that farmer needs to get going. You're trying your best to do the best you can to get him going as quick as you can. And the worst thing as a farmer that you can do is just hover over the guy. You can stand there and visit. The best thing you can do is offer him a Mountain Dew and then walk away. Leave him alone. Answer his questions about what the complaints are and what the symptoms are, and then just leave him alone. If he has a question, he'll call you. Let him get into his own head and just have some time to breathe and focus on your tractor. That will be the quickest thing to get you out. And the worst thing you can do is Monday morning quarterback him, because now anytime anybody comes to your farm, they're going to be like, oh God, it's this guy again. So I don't know. I hope that makes sense to you guys. And I got to go. Trucks are going to be, we're going to load corn out today. And so I had the tractor running this morning, so when the truckers get here, they don't have any problems. But they're going to have a lot of problems just getting in here. I keep telling them to get chains because we always get packed down with ice. And trucks, this little bit of slope here, the trucks really have a bad time. So, all right, guys, thank you very much for watching.